with our good friend Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is the U.S. Bureau Chief of LifeSiteNews. He is also the guest host of Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Are you referring to yourself in the third person now? Stop it. And he joins us right now. How are you, Ben?
Ben Johnson is good. Thank you, Crane.
That's good. So tell me this, Ben. When we talk about, obviously, the topic of abortion, there is somewhat of a marketing strategy to those who are pro-abortion. And what gets me is that if we don't identify the marketing strategy, what happens is people don't realize what they are actually doing, that there is a campaign out there to bring people in for more abortions at Planned Parenthood clinics as well as abortion clinics around the country. Now, Progressives Today, which is a friend of ours in this Nothing But Truth, because Jim Hoft is a friend of mine and the Gateway Pundit, but he's launched this, and they did a report on abortion. What I love about what you do at LifeSiteNews and as U.S. Bureau Chief is you've been covering this and revealing these truths for so long. But we do have a abortion person who ran 4 abortion clinics between, I believe, 78 to 83, but I'm not sure on the dates specifically. And she was discussing in this report the marketing of abortion. Her name is Carol Everett. I know you're familiar with, Reformed Abortion Clinic Director. And her goal, the stated goal at the time of abortion and running abortion clinics our goal was 3 to 5 abortions per student, which is just mind-blowing when we think about it. Here are some of her remarks via the report from Progressives Today earlier this week. Roll it.
Calls us. We're the experts. And we were ready. We used a script designed to overcome every single objection. That's what sales is. Overcome the objection and you get the order, in this case, the abortion. And when she calls, the first question is reassure. And so the girl confesses, I think I may be pregnant. And the counselor, who's really a telemarketer, that's all they're trained to do, sell over the telephone, but we call them counselors, says, we can take care of your problem. No one needs to know. And then the first question, what's the first day of your last normal period? And she gives this so-called counselor the date, and she says you're 8 weeks pregnant. She didn't say you might be 8 weeks pregnant. She didn't say you could be. She said you are 8 weeks pregnant. So she has planted the first seed in this long marketing thread. And the sad thing is, in this girl's mind, she is the expert. This is the pregnancy expert. And the next question is this good news or bad news? If it were good news, she would not be calling it an abortion clinic. It's bad news. And when she replies bad news, this counselor moves right in because now she wants to identify the fear, to use it to reaffirm that abortion decision anytime that girl moves away. And if she says, well, maybe I need to think about this, your parents will kill you, you'll have to miss drill team, the abortion's up. Now, abortions are done through all 9 months of pregnancy, not because of Roe v. Wade, but because of Doe v. Bolte that said for the health of the mother, an abortion can be completed through all 9 months of pregnancy. But the problem was that health was defined as mental health. And we would say to this scared young woman, you would have problems with this pregnancy should you carry it to term, wouldn't you? She'd say yes, and we'd chart it emotional health.
Now, LifeSiteNews back on May 12th was covering this story just to give people an idea of, LifeSiteNews is ahead of the game, and they're on these things, and they're doing it regularly. Progressive Today did an expansive report overall. Nonetheless, Ben, when you hear about a marketing strategy, and to the shock and horror of so many of us who are sitting there and thinking to myself, there's a abortion strategy, a marketing strategy for abortion. Is this just the tip of the iceberg?
What Carol Everett has exposed is valuable to all of us because it tears off the veil of objectivity and the cloak of decency that the pro-abortion movement uses to cloak its true motives. Carol Everett, as you mentioned, ran several abortion clinics back in the 1980s. And you mentioned her intermediate goal was to have several abortions per student. And everyone who worked there as a telemarketer had certain goals. And the raises were passed out as a result of how many sales were made. Her ultimate goal, though, which was not mentioned in this clip, and I've heard her say it a number of times, though, she said her ultimate goal was simple. She wanted to make $1 million a year. In order to do that, you had to have, she calculated the exact number of abortions that were needed, the number of people she had working for her, and she set targets for everyone along the way. The last month that her abortion facility was operating, she had 545 abortions a month, and she made $25 an abortion, more than $13,000 a month. That was her goal. Thankfully, thank God, Jesus can touch any one of us, whether we've had an abortion, whether we have paid for an abortion, whether we have helped other people and benefited from an abortion, as Carol Everett did. And so she's told us it's very simple. They have a marketing strategy. Play on the fear of women. If someone calls in and says she's afraid that the parents are going to find out, it's okay. No one has to know. If they're afraid about their education, you can have this abortion and go right back to school. You won't have to have any time out. It's a one-day thing, and without this, your education might be in peril. But as they say, they play on whatever the woman's fear is until they get her on the hook, and then they're able to make their sale goal, their sale quotient, and they move on to the next victim. That's the ugly underbelly of the abortion industry. And the fact of the matter is, I think only in the upside-down, bizarro world of the media that we have today could being opposed to a money-grubbing, billion-dollar industry that injures women, kills babies, and plays on women's fear be considered a war on women.
Ben, just to update us, are taxpayer dollars still going to abortion, Planned Parenthood specifically?
Planned Parenthood certainly, and abortion around the world. After Barack Obama repealed the Mexico City policy, which had been instituted by Ronald Reagan first, repealed under Clinton, reinstituted under George W. Bush, Obama repealed that once again. So taxpayer dollars are funding abortion all over the world. Planned Parenthood International, the International Planned Parenthood Federation, IPPF, but also Marie Stopes around the world and other abortion providers. Here at home, Title X funding, so-called family planning funding, through Medicaid and other places, funds Planned Parenthood, and it's supposed to have a wall of separation. It only, quote-unquote, only funds contraception or other family planning areas. But some forms of contraception, of course, themselves work to induce an abortion where they can. But more importantly, money is fungible. So if I give Crane Durham $5 for being a radio host, you can use that in order to put it back into the radio show. You can use it however you wish, and it's the same with Planned Parenthood. We're underwriting their activities, which result in more than 300,000 abortions every single year.
And Ben, I only bring that up to get people to recognize this is ongoing. And the fact is, some people wouldn't be aware of that if you are not out there letting people know, yeah, your tax dollars are going to this, and you can't softball it, and you've got to tell the reality about money and being fungible and understanding how they lie about that. And you've done that, and you've detailed how they Planned Parenthood specifically. But that all said, you also wrote about this week abortion and how Republicans can't run away from it because the Republican Party, we have Gallup speaking to the issue of, hey, it's pro-life. So all of those folks saying, quiet about abortion, just be quiet about marriage and abortion. We're always told that as social conservatives, as Christian conservatives. It's like we can compartmentalize our faith and there's no foundation to the problems we have that is truly the culture. But I digress. Ben, what did the survey say?
Survey says, they asked Gallup, and Gallup did a poll in the beginning of this month through the middle of the month. And they asked people their views on abortion, which are basically the same and have been more or less the same since the mid-'70s, but they are moving more in the pro-life direction incrementally, which is that most people want restrictions on abortion. They don't believe, as our U.S. Supreme Court says, that in the case Doe v. Bolton, that abortion should be available through all 9 months. Certainly they don't believe in paying for it. But when they asked about voting habits, they found that people who believe strongly in abortion are a significant portion of the electorate, and that a significant portion of the electorate, about 1 in every 5 voters, said they would only vote for someone who shares his or her views on abortion. Good news for us is there are more pro-life and pro-abortion people who feel that way, which means that if the Republicans want to have their voters turn out, and they need to turn out their own base, the way to win, of course, is to turn out your base, do your best to make sure that your base is larger than your opponent's base, and then win voters in the middle. But they need to turn out their base vote, and their base vote a large percentage of them says they will never, under any circumstances, vote for someone who does not share their views. One of the things Gallup found also, by the way, which was important, is that there is an intensity gap on the issue of pro-life versus pro-abortion. Pro-life voters are a lot more likely to say they will support only a candidate who is pro-life versus people who are pro-abortion are a lot more likely to say it's one of many issues, shall we say, a milieu of left-wing issues that they consider when they're voting for someone. And this is important because in the last two presidential elections, we've had candidates who have completely abandoned the issue, just walked off the playing field altogether. Mitt Romney took out exactly one ad in the 2012 election dealing with abortion to say that he believed in it in certain circumstances. We keep being told by the establishment Republicans who write the big donor checks, just keep away from abortion. We don't want to hear about what these hick hayseed Republican Christians deal with. We're not interested in their issues. We want to talk about the economy and nothing but the economy, and that's how we win. That's what they said in 2008. What they said in 2008 was the war, I think, but in 2012 it was the economy, stupid, and that didn't work. It didn't win. They weren't able to turn out their own base voters. And if they want to repeat in 2016, they could listen to Karl Rove and repeat his talking points again.
States are passing abortion restrictions, specifically Louisiana. This is how they were characterized on MSNBC. Roll it.
People are not actually just driving miles and miles and miles trying to find somewhere to go. People are actually going back to what we had before Roe v. Wade, which is trying to find some other way to end a pregnancy that isn't safe.
They're both happening, and for the people who have to drive hundreds and hundreds of miles, that means they have to wait longer in their pregnancy, which means higher risks. Even though abortion is a very safe procedure, it means more money. Often the travel itself is something that these people cannot afford.
And to talk about the extent to which this is model legislation. Is this legislation that is each individual state coming up with it on their own, or is there sort of a cookie-cutter approach that's being applied?
You know, isn't it magic that all these contiguous states just came up with the same idea on their own? Absolutely, this is a coordinated assault. Americans United for Life in particular, National Right to Life Committee is another one. They craft these model bills. Every year, Americans United for Life has a handbook of laws. They're all called kind of misleading things like a Woman's Right to Know Act. They sound like they're about women's health.
Right.
In reality, they go further and further to undo Roe v. Wade, which is the ultimate plan here.
All right, Ben, we got about 30 seconds. Your thoughts on, if you were there responding, what would you say?
The women behind Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, Norma McCorvey and Mary Doe of Doe v. Bolton, both want their Supreme Court cases overturned. McCorvey admitted she lied in the case. It's a badly decided piece of judicial activism enforced by the worst kind of legal reasoning. And even people who support abortion say it was poorly thought out, it was an overreach, it was a bad decision. If we do this, it won't end abortion in the United States. It just sends it back to states and allows people in their states to influence their local governments, and that's exactly what the other side will never allow to happen.
Ben Johnson, you are a gift. I love you, brother. Thank you for giving us the truth about abortion. LifeSiteNews, you are the U.S. Bureau Chief of LifeSiteNews, your friend, and you also worked with him. Colonel Kukulu coming up. Wish I could have more time with you, buddy. Take care. Thank you. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.